People commonly misconceive the way the media portrays current events. Viewers and readers believe that news outlets are strongly biased. In reality, there are basically two kinds of media, the biased and the straightforward. We must not forget the goal of a news network or publication. They need to attract viewers and readers, and there are several types of those. Yes, a news outlet that attracts one far end of the spectrum will be biased. However, an outlet that attracts either the centrists or merely the genuinely curious will tell the news straightforwardly. Fox does its job for the right.
What is Donald Trump's plan?
Well, honestly, I don't know why that was even said, because I don't care. I mean,
MSNBC does its job for the left.
Colorado have been correcting the Fox News Channel ever since they started making up this story this week.
CNN, CBS, ABC, and NBC simply tell it like it is. What do we see in a biased narrative?
First of all, we only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know. And that sounds silly and stupid and dumb, but it's not. Because when we read something or we watch something on television or we hear something on the radio, we know what the reporter told us. We know who the reporter interviewed and what that interviewee said, and we know what from those interviews and from the data maybe that the reporter collected, what the reporter picked from that and wrote or spoke. We don't know what the reporter decided to ignore. So that's number one. And number two, if we are watching a biased network or we're reading a biased publication, we may be able to suss out the reporter's stance on the news topic, but we just want the real news, and we have to be aware of is the reporter using primary sources, and if the reporter is not, then how do we think about the set of facts we were given in terms of how true is the fact? How true is that set of facts?
Fox is very out there, loud, and they're very, they take a very strong stance on certain things that you wouldn't really expect people to take that stance on. But it characterizes them as a newscast and as people, and it also represents who it is that's running their organization. So I think there's two main factors. I think one, they kind of want to influence people to see their view, but then there's also the idea that they have to represent who it is that's running their organization. So I think those two factors are the main thing, and society either respects that or doesn't respect it, depending on their own personal views as well, which may add to somebody else's views. They might want to watch CNN or MSNBC instead of Fox because of how they feel, and that embodies who they are as a person and who the newscaster is.
So what does a biased narrative look like? What is a biased narrative? Answering that question entails looking at the three domains of journalism. The first domain is the reporting itself. Biased reporters may not always fact-check or verify. When an interviewee gives a reporter a fact, the reporter has an obligation to verify the fact with its primary source. That source could be an official document or a person directly involved in the story. Therefore, the biased reporter may not verify a fact simply because he or she is afraid to find out that the fact is untrue. In that event, the biased narrative is ruined. A straightforward reporter would verify the fact to ensure accuracy. The second domain is a reporter's decision to interview a particular person. A biased reporter will interview someone who confirms the reporter's beliefs.
I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live! Fuck it!
A straightforward reporter will interview the most relevant person in a story regardless of the source's stance. The third domain is style of communication.
Hand to watch. The mood is tense. I have been on some serious reports, but nothing quite like this. Ching King is inside right now. I tried to get an interview with him, but they said, nope, you can't do that. He's a live bear. He will literally rip your face off.
This encompasses both writing and broadcasting. A biased reporter will use rhetoric that is geared towards his or her opinion. A straightforward reporter will use rhetoric that best illustrates the truth.
There's a bunch of different specific situations. Like, I'm gonna say, like, mostly with like how the news has been handling police brutality. So there's that. Like, that is a very big one. The police often have their story, and then whoever it is, witnesses, and then the actual parties involved have their own story as well. Now, depending on the news station, like Fox may have a stance that they're more standing with the police no matter what happens, or like CNN might be like, you know, they're gonna have different perspectives on it. So one might portray one side of the argument as the victim versus the perpetrator, and that could have a whole story skewed. Like, someone who potentially got shot and killed could be seen as not the victim in a situation like that.
In news, we don't care about we don't care about varying what is actually happening. We care about presenting what is actually happening in the best light possible, so that the viewer or the reader or the American people can be educated on what actually is happening, what exactly is going on in the world. So that's number one. Creativity doesn't matter, accuracy matters. But my point on that, if I had the opportunity to go change that myself, my point on that is twofold. Number one, if I could personally go to all network executives and CEOs of newspapers and editors and say, don't be biased, be completely accurate, yeah, I would do that because of what I just said. What matters is the truth, accuracy, and educating the people on what's going on so that those people can make sound decisions for themselves based on the truth.
Know your news outlet. When an anchor or a reporter tells a story, we must examine the validity of the presentation. Where did the facts come from? Did they come from people giving perspective on the story, or did they come from people involved in the story itself? Did the news team choose one type of source to scrutinize, or did they vary their sources? In other words, who didn't they interview? Is their language fair, or is the rhetoric tilted towards one end of the spectrum? In addition to this active scrutiny, we must consider the facts first and the insight second. The facts are essential, and the insight enriches the story. We must prioritize, scrutinize, and think critically.